You know, we use words all day, every day. But think about it. What do they really mean? If you and I misunderstand each other, it's usually not a huge deal, right? But in the world of law, oh man, a single word can literally change someone's life. So that little bit of confusion, it's not just annoying, it's a massive, massive problem. And guess what? The legal system has a specific, super powerful rule designed to tackle exactly this.
Okay, be honest. Have you ever tried to follow instructions perfectly, like to the letter, and the whole thing just goes completely wrong? You know, you're making a cake and it comes out like a brick, or you're building some flat-pack furniture and suddenly realize the doors are on backwards. Yeah, we've all been there. That's the classic gap, right, between what the words say and what they're supposed to mean. Now just imagine that same problem, but instead of instructions for a bookcase, we're talking about the laws of an entire country. How on earth does a system that's built on words handle that?
Well, it all starts with this thing called the literal rule. This is one of the most fundamental ideas in how we interpret laws. And honestly, when you first hear it, it just sounds like common sense. The idea is super simple. Courts should just take the plain, ordinary, everyday meaning of the words in a law. Seems easy enough, right? Well, as you're about to find out, that simple idea, it gets complicated. Fast.
All right, so to really get a grip on this, we're going to break it down. Think of this rule like a machine. We're going to take it apart, look at all the little gears and cogs, and see how they all work together. This is what's known as the rule of plain words.
So, this instruction, which sounds so simple, actually has three really important parts that we need to zoom in on. First up, who is this rule for? Who actually has to follow it? Second, what exactly are they looking at when they apply it? And the big one, what does it even mean to take something literally? Let's kick things off with that first question, the who.
So who are the referees? In this high-stakes game of words, who makes the final call? Well, the rule is crystal clear about this. It points the finger at one group and one group only.
And that group is the courts. This rule is a direct order for judges. It's not just a friendly suggestion for lawyers, and it's not for the politicians who dreamed up the law in the first place. Nope. It's a specific instruction for the judicial branch, telling them exactly how they're supposed to do their job. And this is a really, really big deal. It puts some serious limits on what a judge can do. When they're following the literal rule, a judge isn't supposed to ask, what did the politicians mean when they wrote this? They're definitely not allowed to try and fix a law that seems a bit off. Their job, their only job, is to be an expert reader. Just look at the words on the page and apply their normal, everyday meaning. That's it. End of story.
Okay, so we've got the who sorted out, it's the courts. But what's the what? What are they actually applying this rule to? What's the official rule book we're playing with here? The rule book here is legislation. And that's a specific term. We're talking about the formal written laws, the statutes, that get passed by a parliament or a legislature. So this isn't for figuring out a contract between two people or what someone meant in a text message. We're talking about the official, published text of the law, period.
And you gotta understand, this is so important. All that stuff that happens when a law is being made, you know, the heated debates, the news reports, the promises politicians make, none of that matters one bit to a judge who's using the literal rule. The only thing that counts is that final official text. The words on that page are the beginning, the middle, and the absolute end of the discussion.
Which, of course, brings us right to the heart of it all. We've got our referee, the court. We've got our rule book, the legislation. But what's the actual instruction? How are they supposed to read it? Now this is where things get really, really interesting. Plain English. Meaning. I mean, it sounds so simple, doesn't it? Just use the normal dictionary definition. You know, the meaning that any regular person on the street would get. How hard can that be?
But is it really that simple? Think about it. What seems perfectly plain to you might be totally confusing to someone else. Funny thing is, the word plain itself is not always so plain.
Let's take a classic example to see what I mean. Imagine a sign that says, "No vehicles in the park." Super simple, right? Okay, so, is a bicycle a vehicle? Yeah, probably. But what about an ambulance that's rushing to save someone's life? It's definitely a vehicle, but if we apply the rule literally, it can't go in, which is just absurd. What about a kid's little toy scooter? See? All of a sudden, that plain meaning gets really messy when it bumps up against real life.
Okay, so if this rule can lead to such weird, sometimes even bad results, then why on earth do we even have it? Why would anyone insist on starting with such a strict, literal approach? Well, it turns out there's a really powerful logic behind the whole thing.
It really boils down to three big ideas. First, predictability. If everyone knows that courts are just going to stick to the exact words on the page, then we can all read the law and have a pretty good idea of where we stand. Second, it's all about respecting democracy. We elect lawmakers to make the laws. Judges are there to apply them. This rule helps keep those jobs separate, which is super important. And third, it stops judges from basically becoming lawmakers themselves, making up new rules based on what they think is fair instead of what the law actually says.
So let's go back and look at that definition one more time. It's not just a simple sentence anymore, is it? Now you can feel the tension packed inside every word. You can see the power it gives to the written text, and at the same time, the power it very deliberately takes away from the judge.
At the end of the day, the literal rule is a foundational tool. It's the ground floor, the essential starting point for understanding any law. It's there to create a baseline of clarity and consistency for everyone. It's basically the legal system's way of saying, okay folks, before we get into any complicated arguments, can we all just agree to start by reading the same words and taking them at face value?
But this whole thing leaves us with one final, kind of mind-bending question. The literal rule is all about using plain, simple language. So, if that's the goal, why is so much legal writing famously complicated, dense, and full of crazy jargon? And that tension, right there, the gap between the dream of plain meaning and the messy reality of writing laws, that's what makes this stuff so endlessly fascinating to dig into.